The royal photographer's secret. A life of betrayal. The DNA test that shattered everything. A simple DNA test in 2004 would expose one of the most shocking scandals in modern royal history. The results proved that a woman named Polly Fyson was indeed the daughter of Anthony Armstrong-Jones, the former husband of Princess Margaret. But here's where it gets truly explosive. Polly had been born during Anthony and Margaret's honeymoon. 6 weeks of Caribbean bliss, while miles away, another woman carried his child. Yet even this wasn't the most devastating revelation. The identity of Polly's mother would shake the foundations of trust and friendship in ways that even the jaded British public found hard to swallow. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how deep this betrayal ran, we need to go back to the beginning, to a boy who learned early that love could be conditional and loyalty was just another word in the dictionary. A childhood forged in abandonment. Anthony Armstrong-Jones didn't start life as a villain. Born into upper-class privilege, his father a distinguished barrister, his mother a society darling, young Anthony seemed destined for comfort and connection. But privilege, as he would learn, doesn't guarantee love. When his parents divorced just before his 5th birthday, something fractured inside him. He and his older sister went to live with their mother, who wasted no time remarrying. Her new husband? Lawrence Parsons, the 6th Earl of Ross. Suddenly, Anthony found himself part of nobility, a significant leap in 1930s England. But this elevation came with a price. His mother had 2 children with Parsons, and Anthony felt the sting of being treated as lesser than his half-siblings. He lacked noble blood, you see. In the rigid hierarchy of British aristocracy, this mattered. This mattered deeply. Then came the event that would define his childhood in ways both physical and emotional: polio. During a holiday in Wales, the disease struck with merciless efficiency. 6 agonizing months in Liverpool Royal Infirmary followed. 6 months where the only family member who visited was his sister. Not his newly remarried mother, not his father, just his sister. Think about that for a moment. A child, paralyzed with fear and pain, watching the door day after day, hoping to see a parent's face. And that door never opening. What does that do to a young soul? After recovering, left with a permanent limp that would haunt him for life, his parents still didn't reconnect. Instead, they shipped him off to boarding schools, including the prestigious Eton. There, he threw himself into photography, boxing, and rowing, despite his damaged leg. He was learning to channel pain into ambition, rejection into determination. The making of a royal photographer. Cambridge University seemed like the next logical step, but Anthony's path was never straightforward. He started studying natural history, only to quit after just 10 days. Architecture became his new passion, but fate intervened again when he failed his second-year exams. The trajectory of his future shifted once more. Photography, initially just a hobby, began to look like salvation. His parents were unenthusiastic, which only widened the chasm between them. But Anthony possessed something valuable: connections, noble stepfamily, prestigious school years, and an eye for capturing beauty in ways others couldn't. In the 1950s, he built a reputation photographing fashion and stage stars. His Pimlico Road studio became legendary, not just for the quality of work, but for the wild parties he threw. Young women he photographed, champagne flowing, scandalous rumors of both heterosexual and homosexual affairs swirling like smoke. But beneath the hedonism, Anthony remained laser-focused on his career. Fashion photography led to theatre work, which led to his ultimate goal: royal portraits. When Queen Elizabeth II commissioned him to photograph her family, appreciating his unconventional style, Anthony had arrived. He seemed a charming addition to their circle. How wrong they were. The secret romance. As Anthony's success grew, so did his discretion about romantic entanglements. The public knew about his on and off affair with showgirl Jackie Chan, But this was merely camouflage for something far more dangerous. By the late 1950s, Anthony had become a household name in Great Britain. But he harbored a secret that could destroy everything. He was falling for Princess Margaret, the Queen's sister. This wasn't just complicated, it was a potential disaster. Margaret had recently endured a highly publicized breakup with Captain Peter Townsend, a romance that had captivated and ultimately broken the nation's heart. The scrutiny had been unbearable, the pressure crushing. Princess Margaret's life had been the inverse of Anthony's. While he struggled for family attention and career recognition, she grappled with suffocating public expectations. But in their clandestine meetings, discussing his work and sharing private moments away from prying eyes, they found something real. Or at least, they thought they did. Learning from Margaret's failed romance, the royal family was determined the press wouldn't destroy this relationship. But that determination required sacrifice. For Anthony to marry Margaret, he would have to give up professional photography entirely. He agreed. Long before Fleet Street caught wind of the romance, Anthony quietly began distancing himself from his studio, his clients, his life's work. The wedding that changed everything. The 1960 press release announcing their engagement shocked everyone. London society knew Anthony the photographer, but the wider world had no idea who this commoner was who'd captured a princess's heart. Most were thrilled. Anthony's father, characteristically cold. He expressed doubts about his son's suitability, comparing living in Buckingham Palace to being confined in barracks. Regrettably, time would prove him more right than anyone wanted to admit. Wedding preparations began, but trouble emerged immediately. Anthony chose his friend Jeremy Fry as best man, but a background check revealed that Fry had been caught soliciting another man in a public bathroom. The palace swiftly covered it up and provided an excuse for Fry's absence, but a shadow had been cast. On May the 6th, 1960, Anthony Armstrong-Jones and Princess Margaret were married in a ceremony that made history. The first royal wedding ever televised. 20 million viewers watched. 2,000 guests attended. It was spectacular, glamorous, hopeful. Then came the 6-week Caribbean honeymoon, where they escaped public scrutiny. They missed significant events back home, including the birth of Jeremy Fry's child. That birth, that timing, would later become a source of explosive scandal. For now, though, they seemed happy. Finally on the path to the fairy tale. The cracks begin to show. Returning home brought harsh reality. Segments of the British press disapproved of the union, seeing Anthony as an unworthy commoner. This snobbery extended beyond media into their daily lives. Some servants at Kensington Palace treated him poorly, viewing him as unequal to other royals. Their butler lasted only 25 days before selling stories to the press, painting a damning picture of their home life. Prince Philip, who'd never warmed to Anthony, became openly hostile after the marriage. Their personalities clashed fundamentally. Anthony was artistic and sensitive, Philip, a rugged outdoorsman. The tension was palpable at every family gathering. The strain of giving up his career, combined with press scrutiny and royal family disdain, began crushing Anthony. Within months, Margaret became pregnant with their first child. Anthony accepted the title Earl of Snowdon, which delighted his mother, a rare occurrence. Their son was born in November 1961, but parenthood didn't come naturally to either of them. They embarked on another Caribbean trip shortly after, and upon return, Anthony struggled to find meaningful work that satisfied both his artistic soul and his demanding in-laws. Margaret felt ignored by family and husband alike. She began drinking more. The media's former darling became a target of criticism, with Anthony taking most of the blame. Their royal life had become a prison with gilded bars. Swinging London and separate lives. Princess Margaret and Anthony shared few common interests, but they both embraced swinging London in the early 1960s with enthusiasm. Anthony circulated among Vogue executives, while Margaret befriended celebrities like the Beatles and Peter Sellers. They were estranged from their families except for official functions. Their old friend groups had changed. The distance between them grew wider. In 1964, Margaret gave birth to their second child, a daughter named Sarah. Just 4 years into marriage, they appeared to be the perfect family. But appearances, as always, were deceiving. By 1965, Anthony needed escape. He planned a trip with a friend from the publishing world. The palace claimed Margaret couldn't join due to Queen-related duties. That was a lie. The truth? Anthony had been spending significant time with Pamela Collin, a married Vogue editor, and their interactions weren't professional. Margaret's response surprised everyone. Instead of sinking into despair, she decided on revenge. She had a fling with her daughter's godfather, Anthony Barton, and spent more time with actor Peter Sellers. While their fame prevented anything beyond flirtations, Margaret wasn't finished playing the game. The downward spiral rumors swirled about Margaret's affairs with famous figures: Mick Jagger, Warren Beatty, Leslie Hutchinson. Few were substantiated, but one affair became legendary. Robin Douglas Home, the former Prime Minister's nephew. This relationship turned intense quickly. Anthony walked in on Margaret and Robin conversing at Kensington Palace. Robin initiated divorce proceedings with his wife, signalling deepening commitment. Anthony devised a cunning plan. He intercepted a letter Robin wrote to Margaret and showed it to the Queen Mother. Then he demanded Margaret cease seeing Robin. This brilliant maneuver not only eliminated his rival, but shifted blame for the marriage's troubles onto Margaret, potentially allowing him more freedom for career and affairs. Margaret obeyed and ended the relationship. But Robin Douglas Home tragically took his own life 18 months later at age 36. Did this serve as a wake-up call? Absolutely not. This marked the beginning of years of bitter infidelity. Anthony left cruel notes for Margaret, writing things like, "You look like a Jewish manicurist," and "I hate you." At parties, he'd rudely interrupt her. "Shut up and let someone intelligent talk." Those around them cringed with discomfort. While Anthony seemed unaffected, Margaret was profoundly unhappy. Surprisingly, the royal family sided with Anthony throughout because he remained so charming and likable. They hoped the couple could quietly lead separate lives to avoid divorce scandal. Margaret coped by drinking more and displaying rude behaviour in public. Anti-monarchists criticised her and the cost she represented to taxpayers. The consequences were building, but would take years to arrive. Swinging London and separate lives. Princess Margaret and Anthony shared few common interests, but they both embraced swinging London in the early 1960s with enthusiasm. Anthony circulated among Vogue executives, while Margaret befriended celebrities like the Beatles and Peter Sellers. They were estranged from their families, except for official functions. Their old friend groups had changed. The distance between them grew wider. In 1964, Margaret gave birth to their second child, a daughter named Sarah. Just 4 years into marriage, they appeared to be the perfect family. But appearances, as always, were deceiving. By 1965, Anthony needed escape. He planned a trip with a friend from the publishing world. The palace claimed Margaret couldn't join due to Queen-related duties. That was a lie. The truth? Anthony had been spending significant time with Pamela Collin, a married Vogue editor, and their interactions weren't professional. Margaret's response surprised everyone. Instead of sinking into despair, she decided on revenge. She had a fling with her daughter's godfather, Anthony Barton, and spent more time with actor Peter Sellers. While their fame prevented anything beyond flirtations, Margaret wasn't finished playing the game. The downward spiral rumours swirled about Margaret's affairs with famous figures: Mick Jagger, Warren Beatty, Leslie Hutchinson. Few were substantiated, but one affair became legendary: Robin Douglas Home, the former Prime Minister's nephew. This relationship turned intense quickly. Anthony walked in on Margaret and Robin conversing at Kensington Palace. Robin initiated divorce proceedings with his wife, signaling deepening commitment. Anthony devised a cunning plan. He intercepted a letter Robin wrote to Margaret and showed it to the Queen Mother. Then he demanded Margaret cease seeing Robin. This brilliant maneuver not only eliminated his rival, but shifted blame for the marriage's troubles onto Margaret, potentially allowing him more freedom for career and affairs. Margaret obeyed and ended the relationship, but Robin Douglas Home tragically took his own life 18 months later, at age 36. Did this serve as a wake-up call? Absolutely not. This marked the beginning of years of bitter infidelity. Anthony left cruel notes for Margaret, writing things like, "You look like a Jewish manicurist," and "I hate you." At parties, he'd rudely interrupt her. "Shut up and let someone intelligent talk." Those around them cringed with discomfort. While Anthony seemed unaffected, Margaret was profoundly unhappy. Surprisingly, the royal family sided with Anthony throughout because he remained so charming and likable. They hoped the couple could quietly lead separate lives to avoid divorce scandal. Margaret coped by drinking more and displaying rude behavior in public. Anti-monarchists criticized her and the cost she represented to taxpayers. The consequences were building, but would take years to arrive. Anthony began using his influence for noble causes, advocating for the disabled due to his lasting polio effects. He appeared to be living happily with Lucy while continuing his affair with Anne. This affair lasted a staggering 20 years. Anne had always hoped for more from Anthony, but as years passed, it became evident her wishes would never be fulfilled. She had other relationships, even lived with other boyfriends, yet continued yearning for Anthony. In late 1996, after writing a column for The Guardian for many years, Anne Hills was let go. She'd just been abandoned by another boyfriend and spent yet another Christmas without Anthony. Overwhelmed by deep depression, she took her own life, leaving a note expressing enduring love for Anthony and requesting return of a family heirloom he'd given her. Authorities investigating her death discovered her diaries containing all details of her two-decade involvement with Anthony. Before long, newspapers plastered those diary contents everywhere, revealing Anthony's continuous infidelity throughout his marriage to Lucy. Lucy discovered this heartbreaking truth. Anthony's response was callous. He provided no explanation and expected life to proceed as usual. But Anthony was harboring more secrets. The final betrayals. 2 years after the press exposed his long-term affair with Anne Hills, Lucy stumbled upon another shocking revelation. Anthony had fathered a child with magazine editor Melanie Cable Alexander, nearly 30 years his junior. Over the years, Lucy had become aware of Anthony's tendency to manipulate truth to his advantage. This time, she confronted him. He confessed. Lucy had vowed never to leave him, but this proved the breaking point. Anthony found himself caught between Lucy and Melanie, attempting to salvage both relationships, satisfying neither woman. Supporting an ex-wife, a mistress, and growing number of children strained his finances significantly. To alleviate the burden, he surprisingly encouraged Melanie to accept a £250,000 payout from Hello magazine for an appearance. Ultimately, Anthony parted ways with Melanie. Lucy initiated divorce proceedings. Anthony's libido led him to move on quickly with multiple girlfriends simultaneously, despite painful muscular atrophy from lingering polio effects. Old habits die hard. The bombshell revelation. In 2017, Anthony Armstrong-Jones peacefully passed away at his Kensington home at age 86. He was laid to rest in his family plot in Wales, outliving his ex-wife Margaret by 15 years. His other ex-wife, Lucy, remained his friend after divorce, caring for him in his later years. In his final years, some of Anthony's most scandalous secrets emerged. Beyond affairs with women, there were speculations about his sexuality, suggestions of being bisexual. A couple of male interior designers claimed romances with him, though these remained unverified. What is certain, in the ongoing feud between Anthony and Margaret, they continued escalating the situation. Back when they were ensnared in infidelity, rumours circulated that Margaret had a fling with Mick Jagger. In Tit for Tat, Anthony was said to have had an affair with Mick's glamorous wife, Bianca Jagger. But Anthony's history of indiscretions dated back much further than anyone realised. Remember that DNA test in 2004? The one that confirmed Anthony had an illegitimate daughter born just weeks before his marriage to Margaret? Here's the devastating truth that was hidden for over 40 years. The identity of that girl's mother, Camilla Fry, the wife of Anthony's best friend, Jeremy Fry, the man who was supposed to be his best man at the wedding to Princess Margaret. While Anthony and Margaret honeymooned in the Caribbean for 6 weeks, believing they were starting their life together, Camilla Fry was back in England, pregnant with Anthony's child. The same Jeremy Fry whose background check had revealed a scandal. The same Jeremy Fry whose child's birth they'd missed during that honeymoon. That child was Polly Fyson, Anthony's daughter. The betrayal ran deeper than anyone imagined. Anthony had slept with his best friend's wife, gotten her pregnant, then married a princess while his illegitimate child was being born. He'd stood beside Jeremy at social gatherings, accepted his friendship and hospitality, all while carrying this monstrous secret. And he kept that secret for 44 years. Epilogue: the legacy of betrayal. The tumultuous relationships and shocking revelations surrounding Anthony Armstrong-Jones reveal a complex tapestry of infidelity and scandal. These revelations shed light on Anthony's character and the turmoil that underpinned his relationships. One can only imagine how Princess Margaret would have reacted had she discovered the full extent of his secrets. She spent years being blamed for their marriage's failure, criticized for her behavior, painted as the difficult one. All while Anthony charmed the royal family, maintained his reputation, and hid betrayals that made her indiscretions seem almost quaint by comparison. Anthony Armstrong-Jones was a man shaped by childhood abandonment, who learned that love was conditional and loyalty was negotiable. He spent his life proving he could be desired, even as he destroyed those who desired him. He achieved incredible success, married a princess, earned a title, and left behind a legacy of beautiful photographs. But he also left behind a trail of broken hearts, destroyed friendships, and secrets that outlived him. Perhaps the most tragic part? He died peacefully, surrounded by care, having never truly faced consequences for his actions. Anne Hills took her own life. Robin Douglas Home took his own life. Princess Margaret endured public criticism and private misery. Lucy was betrayed repeatedly. Camilla Fry carried a secret for decades. And Anthony? He simply moved on to the next affair, the next conquest, the next opportunity to prove he was wanted, even if he could never truly want anyone in return. That's the real scandal of Anthony Armstrong-Jones. Not the affairs themselves, but the cold, calculated way he betrayed everyone who loved him, all while maintaining the charming facade that made him so beloved by the very family whose daughter he tortured. The DNA test in 2004 didn't just reveal a secret daughter. It revealed the truth about a man who spent his entire life running from the abandoned little boy in that hospital room, waiting for parents who never came, by making sure he would never be abandoned again, even if it meant abandoning everyone else first.